out. You haven't voted and you're in the front. You're fired.
Well, joining me now from Washington is Republican strategist Morgan P Muchnick. Thanks so much for being with us. I just have to get your opinion first on if you think, anything should actually be read into the fact that this president has had the highest employee turnover, some say in presidential history, but at least in the last 4 decades.
Well, first, your kudos to your team. That was a colorful, fun prequel to this discussion. Some of those firings are very much deserving. Others may not be so. Yes, I mean, clearly the president is an extremely difficult person to work with day to day. And I think the two most telling positions, the communications director and chief of staff, have really high turnovers. I think part of that is because President Trump isn't from a multi-generational government career background. He comes from business, and business, he has a plan, and he pushes through that plan. Sometimes he pushes through like a freight train, and he gets to a place where it's either success or not success. But it's usually not a failure because of not acting quickly. And I think putting him into the government system, which is slow, methodical, endless layers of bureaucracy, has been a very unnatural fit from a personality and a leadership style.
Well said. Well said. I'm following you. I mean, but listen, you're a Republican strategist. So, with Trump trailing actually in the polls right now, what would you recommend as a strategist that he do in these last days to kind of, try to compensate for reports like this that we're seeing now more and more, summing up his last 4 years?
Sure. So in some ways, Trump is a little bit of a catch-22 with respect to this upcoming debate, because traditional models would say that it would probably make a lot of sense for him to kind of play the more traditional, calm, sort of thoughtful role to kind of cut against the image of him being a bit of a bully on the previous debate. The problem is with this Hunter Biden stuff breaking and these really strong issues relating to whether Joe Biden and his son have done shady things with respect to China and some of these other things, that he knows that the media isn't really going to, at least the U.S. mainstream media, isn't really going to cover that very much. So I think the tension for him is going to be how hard does he push on that in the debate to highlight what he sees as corruption amongst the Bidens.
Let me grab you on that quickly, because I was wondering in the last debate why that didn't backfire, why Joe Biden didn't say, hey, talk about giving your kids some kind of advantage in business and politics. You've employed your entire family in the White House. Would that have been fair to argue?
Yeah, well, completely fair.
Yeah.
And they did. But I mean, the media did do that all the time. I mean, that was a story on almost every station every couple days in the first year and a half or so of the Trump presidency. So they did. I think from Trump's point of view, all he would say is, why don't you just simply do the same to my opponent? Because they did do that to Trump's family.
Morgan, so unfortunately, we're actually out of time. I would have loved to continue this discussion a little further, but we're going to have to wrap it there. Thanks so much for being with us from Washington.